Chapter 2. It's okay, a fragile voice promised as the figure threw back her shimmering hood. Blonde ringlets cascaded around the beautiful familiar face of a weary-looking counselor, Orlai. Her pink jeweled circlet was noticeably absent as she told them, "I came here on my own." Alden lowered his hand, which was holding a melder, a small silver gadget that caused instant painful paralysis. "How long before the others arrive?" "Not long. Bronte and Tarek are still arguing, but they will gain nothing. There's too much fear and fury clouding the others' reason." Orlai trailed her graceful fingers across her arms, shivering in the moonlight. She was an empath, like Keith and his father, and Sophie had never seen her look so pained. "What will their punishments be?" Alden asked. Orlai lowered her eyes. "Dex and Keith will be suspended until midterm and placed under constant chaperone. Fitz and Biana will be suspended for a week and given a month of sanctuary service." "Wait a minute," Dex interrupted. "How come they get off easier?" "The family holds a tremendous legacy in our world," Orlai reminded him. "The Vackers were practically elven royalty. They had more relatives in the nobility than any other family. Meanwhile, Dex's father had never manifested a special ability, and talent was all that mattered in the Lost Cities. Not wealth or skin or color or age. The elves considered it a fair way of separating people. But Sophie wasn't sure there was any fair way to separate people. Those without abilities couldn't join the nobility, and if they married anyone except another talentless, it was ruled a bad match. Dex's mother had married Dex's father, anyway, but the scorn had haunted Dex his whole life. "So that's how it is?" Keith asked. "Now that we know the truth about my mom, my family's garbage?" "Not garbage," Orlai corrected, "but your father has been removed as an emissary. The counselors do not trust that an empath could be completely blind to his wife's betrayal." Keith blinked several times, then barked a loud, cold laugh. "Well, I guess I can't say my mom never did anything for me. I almost wish I could be there when you break the news." Title and stature meant everything to Keith's father, often at the expense of kindness and love toward his son. So Sophie could understand Keith's rejoicing, but she was surprised to feel a silver of sympathy for Lord Cassius. In one night he'd lost his wife and his beloved title, and in the morning he'd discover his only son had run away. "What about me?" Sophie asked. "What did they decide for my punishment?" "That is still the subject of much debate," Orlai said quietly, "but most likely they will banish you to Exilium." Sophie couldn't decide which part of the sentence was more terrifying. She knew nothing about the mysterious school called Exilium, but she'd been told many times that she did not want to go there. And to be banished? Sure, she was running away, but banishment sounded so permanent. "Exilium is relegated to the neutral territories," Orlai whispered. "A part of our world far too dangerous for you to visit, especially now." "Why especially now?" Alden asked. "The ogres are stirring, at least that is what I fear. Which is why I came to give you this." Orlai snapped her fingers, and a small glass sphere appeared in her palm. Sophie hadn't realized Orlai was a conjurer. "Your cash," Alden said, taking a step back. "Actually, this is Kenrick's," Orlai corrected. "He gave it to me before he—" She didn't say the final word, but it cut deep all the same. Counselor Kenrick had been one of the first counselors Sophie had met, and he'd quickly become one of her favorites. He'd been warm and kind and quick to smile, and had always taken her side. But he'd been murdered a few weeks ago, during Fenton's disastrous healing. Fenton was the pyrokinetic who trained Brent for the Neverseen. He'd suffered a memory break for his treason, but had managed to protect his secrets. When Sophie discovered she could heal minds, the council ordered her to heal Finton, and during the healing, Finton had found the strength to spark an inferno of Everblaze. Sophie had managed to grab Fitz and Orline and teleport to safety, but Kenrick had been lost to the flames. Sophie's only consolation was that Finton died in his own blaze. Orline took Sophie's hand, placing the cash carefully in her palm. 7 glittering stones were set inside, each a different color. Kenrick made me promise to give this to you if anything happened to him, she whispered, to make sure you'd be protected. Does that mean he suspected his life was in danger? Alden asked. We both did, though I should have done more to help. Tears slipped down Orlai's cheeks. I should have done so many things. Counselors weren't allowed to marry or have children, in order to remain impartial in their decisions. But Sophie had seen a connection between Kenrick and Orlai, and suspected they'd been in love. They could have resigned from the council and chosen to be together, but for some reason they'd kept their lives separate. He believed in you, Orlai said, tracing a soft finger down Sophie's cheek. He told me you were the spark of change our world needed, so keep these gifts close, and if the council catches you, use his cash to buy your freedom. Do not let them send you to Exilium. You must also take this. She handed Sophie an imparter, a small silver square that worked like a video phone. It cannot be traced or tracked, and I'm not the only one you'll be able to contact it with it. This way we have means to contact each other. What if the council discovers your involvement? Alden asked. They will surely see this as treason. Sometimes rebellion is the only course of wisdom, as all of you well know. Orlai turned back to Sophie, and her mouth curved with a word, but by the time it slipped from her lips, it had changed to, I must go. She raised her pathfinder to the moonlight and glittered away before Sophie could blink. Now that's what I call mysterious, Keith said. Foster, you should be taking notes. And who else wants to play with this cash thingy and see what it does? You will not do nothing of the sort, Alden told him. And you must not let anyone know you have it. I wouldn't even tell the Black Swan. Our world would crumble if that cash fell into the wrong hands. Really? Sophie asked. It looked like one of the cheap marbles she used to play with as a kid. The object itself is not the danger. It's what the cash contains. What do you think the biggest threat to our world is? Alden asked. The ogres? Sophie guessed. Actually, it is knowledge, Alden corrected. Information holds unimaginable power, and some things are too dangerous to be known, even by the counselors, so they lock the most disturbing secrets away before having them erased from their minds. They're called the Forgotten Secrets, and they are stored in what you hold there. Each counselor vows to guard their cash with their lives. Orlai has taken an enormous risk by giving this to you. She's also given you our world's most valuable bargaining chip. Sophie rolled the glinting marble around her shaking palm, tempted to give such a huge responsibility back. But she owed it to Kenrick to protect his gift. Plus, Orlai's vague warnings had made it sound like she was going to need it. Come on, she told her friends, shoving the cash into her deepest pocket. We should get back to the Black Swan. We should get to the Black Swan. She reached for Fitz's hand, and Keith took her other hand. Bianna clung tightly to her brother, leaving Dex to choose between Keith and Bianna. I won't bite, Keith told Dex. Ow, but no need to get squeezy. None of them looked back as they sprinted into the trees. They wove around fallen branches and gnarled roots, making so many turns Sophie feared they were lost until her ears picked up the telltale whoosh of waves. The forest parted a few steps farther, revealing a steep ocean bluff. I'm going to open my mind to yours so you can finally show me where we're going, she told Fitz. I don't have anything to show you, Fitz said. I just know we're supposed to start at the path of the privileged. Sophie dropped Fitz's hand. I have no idea what that is. And what do you mean by start? That was the first instruction, Fitz said. Instruction? Sophie asked. Or riddle? I guess it could be a riddle, Fitz mumbled, but I didn't think they'd do that this time. Dude, have you met the Black Swan? Keith asked. I know, Fitz said, but I figured for something this important they'd be clear. Sophie backed away so she wouldn't be tempted to shove Fitz off the cliff. Okay, deep breath. What exactly did the riddle say? Fitz handed her a scrap of paper where he'd written the complete message. Take the path of the privileged. Past eyes that watch eternal and blood turned precious. Seek the tower that would not yield for the next steps of your journey. Get anything from that, Foster? Keith asked, reading over her shoulder. Of course not, Sophie grumbled. Why didn't you tell us about this earlier so we could have done some research? Fitz tore his hands through his hair. I'm sorry, I guess I messed up. And you didn't see anything else? Keith asked him. You searched Foster's mind for a while. Only a few minutes, Fitz argued. Keith grabbed Fitz's wrist and pressed his fingers against the exposed skin. Hate to break it to you, but I can tell you're hiding something. Empaths, Fitz grumbled. Just keeping you honest. So spill, what did you see in mysterious Miss F's mind? Fitz turned to Sophie, and even in the dim light she could see the red flush in his cheeks. I might have seen some other stuff, but it wasn't really thoughts, it was more like feelings. Oh? Keith asked as Sophie's stomach filled with bubbling lava. Does that mean you... We're wasting time, Sophie interrupted. The council could be here any second and I still have no idea where we're supposed to be going. Okay, Keith said, following her as she stalked to the edge of the cliff. So we still need to go to Florence, right? The Black Swan told you that? When Fitz nodded, Keith asked Sophie, doesn't your photographic memory have a few pictures of the city tucked away? She had seen pictures of Florence, but that doesn't tell us where we go after that. We'll figure it out. And once we do, we'll all smack Fitz a few times and tell the Black Swan to knock it off with the lame, non-rhyming riddles. In the meantime, Keith grabbed Sophie's hand. We're doing this thing. They'd barely locked hands before Keith pulled them off the cliff's edge.